It's like trying on clothes.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will say, well, I don't have it yet. Well, when you go shopping for clothes, you try them on. And so stating it in the present tense is a way of trying it on.
Ah,
And then
beautiful.
you can get whether that really resonates with you, like, oh, that actually isn't a good fit, or oh, that's a wonderful fit. And I can see and experience myself in that new thing right now.
Hi, Katie.
Hello, Sophie.
I love that both of us, we start by like talking about how much we're happy to be together every time. It's the highlight of our week.
I sometimes have a little bit of fear that people are going to go, oh, there they go again. But I actually, when I look at you and I go, oh, I have time to spend with Sophie, there's this lightness and kind of bubbliness that comes up in my body that I find very, very delightful.
Thank you. I feel the same way. And I think that if they think that, then they should listen to a different show because we are, I mean, we're genuine. Sometimes it's bubbly. Sometimes it's a little, more gravitas, but it's, I love that we love our lives and we love being with each other. I think that's very special. And we are, wrapping up the year. We're starting a new year. And I would love to start our conversation with what are the thorns and what are the petals of the way people go about like resolutions, are so serious. And I'd love to like start us with like what actually works with this clear energy, fresh energy, what is also a little bit maybe used as a punishment that we didn't do or we haven't done or.
Yeah, I think a lot of resolutions, particularly, have such a heavy feeling and have a lot of should around them. Like this is what you should do. And it can remind you of what you didn't do that you should have done, with your last resolutions. And also, I don't think people actually do very well with resolutions. I think that the research is really clear about that people who make resolutions, they don't last, they forget about them. And then it adds to, I think, this sense of, oh, I've failed again. But I was going to do better. And, I made it 3 days. And then, I went into the refrigerator and found all of the chocolate that was hidden in the corners that, that I had sworn I was never going to eat again. So, my sense is I kind of, for me, I separated into two different kind of phases. One is at the end of the year, I like to give some time to completions. And that can be completions of all kinds of, in fact, I have a whole list that I sometimes will use for different areas that I have completions. But one of the things that's created the most liveliness for me is in my living space. So completions of letting go of things, clearing out of things, giving things away. So I spend some time at the end of the year making sure that I've gone into every room and basically said, do I want this? And am I willing to care for it? And so for me, the wanting, do I want this, is I notice how my body responds to looking at, touching, or feeling, or being with that thing. Whether it's clothing or whether it's notebooks or a rug or, like the stuff that's around me. Or when I look at it, do I expand or do I contract? And so, that can take some time. And, I don't know if that's something that you do, but completions, I think, are it's appropriate to look at or useful to look at. What am I willing to let go of? Because this is a time of year where letting go of things can be really helpful.
I definitely do. And I have a similar process. I didn't realize you had that as well, where I'll sit in different areas with the intention of, I'm looking at this corner. Does this bring me joy, or has now been a pile of something that I no longer care about, just happened to grow on that bench,
right.
And
grow
so
like
it has
mold in the corner. Yeah,
exactly. It has this similar. I used to do this thing when my daughter was younger, where we would make it into a party. Like we would put music on, and there'd be like a fun thing in the morning to start us. But we would literally empty every single anything that was inside something else, like a closet, a cubby, a
Oh,
drawer.
wow.
We would take it out because our theory, I mean, she loved it for a few years. At some point, as teenagers would, it was busy doing other things. But the exercise of having everything out, because if you don't
Yeah.
take everything out, it has a vibe of like, I'm going to reorganize this in
Yeah.
this.
There's just this big mess, and I'll
Exactly.
spread things out and push things over. And yeah.
Exactly. But when you do it as a complete thing, then, oh, maybe I want my plates to be somewhere else entirely, So I do that. I do think that there is an energy around the end of something that's the world agrees that we're at the end of something, at the beginning of something around this time. There is something very inspiring and energetic about it. I also
Hmm.
find that there is an energy, as you were talking about, of should and I should have done. Like it's a marker. Like it's like a birthday. It's like, oh, I thought I would be
Yeah.
at a different place by the age of, whatever. And so that carries a punishing energy for me that I would love to
Yeah.
talk about how to, as you spoke of the two different energies, like one is you carried by it and one you kind of fall down by the
Right.
same thing,
Or
really.
it falls down on you,
Yes.
like the accumulation of stuff. Yeah. What was just occurring to me is that the end of the year and the end of things, I think, brings up for people this subliminal fear of death.
Yeah.
And just to name that, and when we let go of things, it is a little death. And
Yeah.
so we are releasing, letting go, and there may be feelings that are connected with that, like a piece of jewelry. I was just thinking about a piece of jewelry that I had been saving because it was my mother's, and I was sure I'd be able to find the other one, the earring, the other one that went with it. So I held on to it for a little while, and then I realized I'm not going to be able to find this. And then the sadness of letting go of that, letting go of that aspect of remembering my mother. And I think people are unwilling to feel the sadness, the grief of loss, of letting go, because we're letting go of a year. It's not like we're letting go of a year. New year. We sort of jump over oh, things are, the leaves fall, relationships end, relationships transition, things break. We had a period of time this last year where practically everything in our house broke and, having to be replaced. But then there was also that, what are we going to do with the thing that we're letting go of? Because the thing could be a big thing, like a refrigerator I think it also puts us in touch with, resources, how we're using resources. Other people don't have resources. So I think there are a bunch of feelings that come up for people, that people kind of stuff, or they drink over it, or they party, and I think that that's part of the reason that people get sloshed, at this time of year, because they're not really looking at the feeling sense of letting go.
That's beautiful. And also, I wonder if maybe it is a letting go as well, but I sometimes find that people struggle with the decision. Should I keep this earring
Oh,
from my
yeah.
mom? Like it's most
I
likely,
might be able to use it.
or is it so much value that I should keep it because I pay, like I have a pair of shoes that I paid more money than I had years ago. The pair doesn't even fit me
Yeah.
whatsoever. But
Yeah.
it's like every time I move from one house to a storage to a this to that, I'm always like, oh, but it was like $300, whatever it was. And it's just like a lot. I'm never going to wear these shoes, but somehow making the
Yeah.
decision, because
Yeah.
maybe that's when you said letting go, I wonder if there's also, it tells me that I may have made a mistake. So if I keep the
Mm.
shoes somehow,
I didn't make that
I didn't
mistake,
make
or
the
it wasn't so
mistake.
bad.
I know.
Or you're just going to ignore that the shoes don't even fit me anymore.
Or that
So it's
that I'm paying storage to like keep these shoes over and over.
I know we had we had in our storage, in our official storage for all of our stuff, for the Hendricks Institute, we went from 2 storage units to 1, which I was very proud of. And one of the things that we were trying to figure out was what to do with hundreds of cassettes.
Mm.
that we had from way back, because we've gone through all of these different eras of technology. So we have CDs, we have cassettes, and wanting to let go of them, but not wanting to just throw them in a landfill somewhere. And so figuring out how to gracefully let go. And we spent some time doing that. Like we sent a lot of cassettes to different places. Like we sent a bunch of them to different prisons so they could be available in libraries, and we sent things to libraries. So we did our best to not just trash.
Not
But all
waste.
of that takes time and consideration, but it also takes presence. Like, I actually am letting go of this.
Mm.
And I think when my experience is when I've let go of something consciously, I literally feel more inner space.
Yeah.
There's this like big, and more freedom, and I can feel more movement in me. Like I'm not carrying this, like, some of my heritage is, European peasant. And I would sometimes feel that I'm carrying these things in my two buckets, the things slung across my shoulders with all my stuff that's weighing me down. I mean, literally, I don't think people realize that stuff weighs on you.
I did a workshop years ago where I guess it was very much about learning to let go. And so they sent us home one night and we were supposed to pick something that, not value of money necessarily, but something like I picked the jacket this guy gave me when I was like 14, whatever. And then this woman like picked the socks that someone had knitted for their kid that no longer was with us. I mean, like kind of like,
Yeah.
like, whoa, like it carried this energy. And so we had to come back the next day without knowing what we were going to do with it. Well, we were going to pass it on to someone else in the class. And so we sat down and I explained to you why that jacket meant so much. And I told you the story and blah, blah, blah. At the end of it, I was to hand it to you for you to have it. But that wasn't the exercise. The exercise was to turn around and give it to someone else. So here you were having given me the socks of your child, blah, blah, blah. That was like so incredibly, and now I was responsible for that thing. Like you had added a new weight. Now I have to turn around and give it to someone else who had no connection to the initial person. So it was just an exercise of like, let it, learn to not be attached to these things because they don't actually are the experience. They're not the actual moment. They're just a memento of it. And, maybe we don't need those because we carry the memory inside of our hearts. It was
that's that's wonderful that you're sharing that. So I've learned that so many times where I've put my feelings over into a thing.
Yes.
And, then it becomes a kind of a totem for me. And really recognizing that, the only thing I really have is the experience.
Yeah.
And so having that practice of letting go and then what remains. And for me, what remains is the actual felt experience of that thing, and maybe the relief of letting go of it, like my mother, for example, collected, jewelry from all over all her trips and all over the world. And I inherited this, just vast array and so I've been letting go of those for quite some time now. And I'm getting ready to do a big let go. And I'm really wondering about how I can honor these pieces that I have, none of which are, incredibly, monetarily valuable, but they're unique and some of them are quite quirky. And so, that's one of my completion tasks for this year, because I can feel in me, it's it's time.
How do you make the decision? So say there is a what do you call those things? What do you call those things? Like a box.
Like it's a jewelry box.
Like a jewelry box. Like how do you make, I'm imagining you sitting there with all these intricate things. How do you actually make will you keep some? Will you pass all of them? Like how do you make the decision?
Yeah, that's really good. Well, and I've also been asking this question and making decisions about it for years. And some things I've already, I'll look at something and I'll go, oh, my friend Audrey, that would be perfect for her.
Oh.
And then what I also do is I clean the item, I clean the jewelry so that it doesn't have all of the old in it, or the,
what color is
that's the
Yachachach?
scientific phrase for old stuff.
Yeah.
And then I also tune into, do I want to just let go of it, or does this want to live with somebody? And then it becomes an act of kind of appreciating my mother's exquisite taste. She really, with color and with jewelry and with forms, because she grew up in that era. She was a hostess and she did lots of entertaining. And so she had different outfits and she had rhinestones and, all of these different things that, I look at these big rhinestone things and I go, that's really
That's a piece.
That's a piece. That's a piece. All right. So, for me, it's a, what I keep coming back to is that I let myself feel what I'm feeling about it. And I might express it, but I for sure know that I'm doing that. And that allows me, it's part of the letting go, of letting myself feel. And that also informs me about, do I want to keep this or do I want to let go of it?
I love that. I also use the have I worn this thing in the last year? Which that's seasons, right? It gives me like, okay, this might be focused. You don't want to trash things to go, cold when it's hot because you may need those. So I do that. But then I have a separate closet in the house where I will put things in to do another year. And if I don't use them, like I don't even look at them. But if by the end of the year, I'm like, I didn't miss this piece at all, then to me, that is a sign.
Oh, now that's very cool that you have they're sort of in timeout. It seems like
a little bit
in a little closet, and they're in the closet waiting
to see if I'm going to really need you.
Yeah.
Because that shirt that's like this ridiculous color and it's kind of scratchy. But if I ever was to paint in the rain, I would want to wear that shirt. And it's like, when am I going to paint in the rain with something that's scratchy? Like, what am I saying even? But to pause, I agree with you that for people, it takes time. It takes more time for me to do this process than to just be like, oh, let me just store it over here and never think about it again.
Well, I think people confuse themselves, and I think they also stumble on, I'll just put it over here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll deal with it later. And what that's like doing is like stuffing things in your pocket.
Yeah.
And thinking, oh, well, I'll just deal with it later. And then your pockets get all bulging and you can't pull things on or off and nothing fits because you've got stuff, you've got things that you think you've put away, but they're still attached to you. And
this last summer, I was with my mom in Paris and I don't know that would describe the way you were just talking about your mother, but kind of. She definitely had a style. We found these like 60s big belts, and belt button things and bottom things. And so there's that for me. Like, will there be something in fashion that in like a few years, I'll turn around and be like, oh,
well, because everything comes around again.
Everything comes around.
Right.
So I'm glad that my mother kept, in her case, there's like boxes and boxes of it. And so I picked 3 things, that I thought were really cool. And, if I ever get costumed in the 60s of sorts, but then maybe that's how we do it that's the other thing I would do. I remember that when my daughter was little, we would literally be like, all right, there's 12 things, you can keep 3, go. And she would just like, okay, well, if I only have 3, then this sweater, I don't want to keep, like it helped by having almost like I can only have this many somehow for space.
Yes.
Like it helped us decide which ones were truly meaningful versus, just there.
And also, I want to just mention again, the question that's been valuable for me is, am I willing to care for this? Because, I can't just park it because all of our things have energy.
Yeah.
And if I have it over there and it's, it's tarnished or it's, it needs a part replaced, or it needs to be cleaned or something, and I don't do that, it's really a demonstration of that I'm not any longer relating to it.
Yes.
And that's a signal for me that, it's time to let that go.
And that actually is not, when you keep that thing that's tarnished or doesn't work or the battery leaked and, that all,
Right.
that actually sucks your energy. It's not a free
Exactly.
for all, it's not like it's just sitting there. It's not going to do any wrong. Or it does. It actually, every time you pass by it, almost like a
Yes.
subliminal, like, ooh, I'm sorry, I can take care of my
Yeah.
things, or it has that
Yeah,
energy.
it's grit. I mean, I was just experiencing it as grit, like, or a pebble in my shoe.
Yes.
That, and I'm just going to ignore it, because, I think that someday, I'm going to wear that shoe again, and it's not going to have that same experience.
Yeah. So are we saying that, so beginning of the year, end of the year, this energy, what I like is that it's going to carry me to do things, not from, I haven't resolved like I remember my resolutions always were, I want to make more money and I want to be thinner and I want to be in love with whatever, like these giant things, right? And then I wouldn't, and I would start using it against me, like, yes. Oh, look, I didn't do it.
Yes.
Which turns out the weight, the money, the relationship, all of it came out of me loving myself more and more. Which yes. The resolution that I didn't do, I used to not love myself. So somehow it was almost so counterproductive. Again, not neutral, counterproductive.
Right. Not neutral. We think, is this not going to make any difference? And it really does. That the whole idea of completions is to open space. Yeah. And then in that new space, what do I want now? Like, and the question for me often is, who am I becoming? And one of the questions I ask for things, both that I'm wanting to create and that I have already created, and I'm wondering if I want to let go of them, is, does this support my becoming?
Oh.
Does this support my evolution? Does this support my expansion? Or is this more old me? And, in terms of not just me, but like old me, the way that I organize my life or my living situation, or my relationships. So that question has been often kind of it's a little like going through a narrow door for me. And it's always been so valuable because, and the other thing I want to add that I do and that I want to invite people to do is use your body. Let your body tell you what your response is. And like sometimes I'll put things, that I'm trying to decide about, I'll actually put it in a place on the floor and then I'll step into it or around it and then notice how my body feels.
Oh, beautiful.
And if I feel more energetic, wonderful. And if I feel any kind of, heaviness or, sluggishness, poof,
gotta go.
Even though my mind might say, "Oh, but that's such a great color," or that I got that from my high school friend, or and I've actually never regretted making a decision where I've used my body wisdom to support me.
Do you also, that's beautiful. It's assuming that my body knows, which is an affirmation. Yeah. That I trust what it tells me. And it's just so beautiful. I'm curious, do you also do the one? The answer is yes for me, just to share the bias. Do you do the one about weight? Like, but that sweater, when I'm fatter, I fit in that sweater and it's the only sweater I had for all these years. And
yes, I had several years ago because, about 15 years ago, I lost about 40 pounds. Which I have kept off, which I feel very, very proud of. Yes. And also, it allowed a whole new me to show up.
Yes.
And that following year, what I noticed was that all my clothes were hugely baggy. They were just like, some version or another of a tent. And so that was a big clear out year because I would put it on and I go, I could fit two people in here, or it would be swimming in it. So involving my body, involving your body, I think makes a really, really huge difference in letting it be a moving experience rather than clogging you up with thinking about, what I want to do or making lists. Using your body and your body wisdom, the body yes and the body no. is so much more effective and quicker.
How do you address but what if I gain weight again? I'll have to rebuy all these clothes?
Yes. Well, I look at, okay, I'm afraid I'm going to get fat again.
Yeah.
That was a theme for me for so many years. I would get on the scale in the morning and I would be afraid that I would be suddenly have gotten fat again. Yeah, quite suddenly it would be. So that was just part of also my letting go of my old experience of me.
Yeah.
That the letting go of, I would look in the mirror and I would also look at videos of me and I go, oh, I'm not fat. I'm still not fat because my own assessment of me hadn't caught up yet.
Yeah.
One of the things that we know is that our body image takes quite a few months to catch up with our actual body size. And if you change your body size, your body image is not going to catch up with it for a little while. And so making decisions from that in between places, you can regret it if you do. So that's also, I think, a part of transitions.
It's funny the year as well where I lost my first, mine were 200, but it took, the first year was maybe 60, which was very dramatic.
Yes.
The first chunk off. And I would go to a store and I would pick something. I think my size was 32 at that time. So I would pick a thing that was maybe a 28 or something. And I would go to the cashier and the guy'd be like, honey, are you planning on wearing that with a friend? Like, this is way too big for you. Go pick something else. So I would go to the store and I would pick something that now was a size 2, like a mini t-shirt for a child. And I would bring it to the cashier and the guy would be like, honey, I'm going to walk around with you and I'm going to help you because it was almost like dysmorphia, like a version of.
Yes. Well, it was
dysmorphia, truly not understand. Well, I would pass by a mirror and I would look and I'd be like, oh, this cool. This girl is wearing these cool shoes. Oh, wait, those are my shoes. And I would literally not.
That's me. Right.
Picture that it was me. Like it took me maybe more than a few months, actually, for me. It took a while to step into this new person.
Yes. And that's such a good clue too, for also the other part of this time of year, which is stepping into the new.
Yes.
And I use, instead of, manifestations or, resolutions, I have a series of questions that I've used for for moving into the new year. And I always start with, what do I really want?
Mm-hmm.
And that in itself is a huge question for most people because, I shouldn't want anything and, other people don't have things. So I should just diminish what I want because it's selfish. And so you have to deal with all of the wanting, the anti-wanting taboos that most of us live in. But when you've landed on like just one thing that you want for the new year, there are a couple of questions there are a few questions that I have found incredibly valuable and have used them for years. And so I'd like to share those. Would it be okay to share those, do you think?
Yes. I'd like to answer a couple of them. Okay. And also, will we be able to share, like, is there something we can share with our audience?
Yes. In fact, I'm going to, have a little PDF and we can post
we'll
that.
Add that in the notes. Beautiful.
Yes. So that'll be in the notes. And so if you're listening to this, I'd love for you to think about one thing, maybe not right this minute, but when you want to look at these questions, something that you really want. And then one question is, does it have heart? And that for me, that means when I think of it, does it create warmth? Does my heart feel expanded? Do I have this sense of wanting to kind of hug it? And the other thing is, it's more than just a good idea. Because some of our, things that I want, it's really something that somebody else wants for me. But if it has heart for me, it actually is going to wake up my wanting to care for it and my energetic journey to creating it. So instead of just, is this a good idea? And I make a list, I actually go, does this have heart? And then notice how my body responds.
I'm curious with that one. When you say something like, what do I want? Are we talking across the board? Is it like freedom to express myself, or is it a new car? Or could it be both?
It could be both. It could be both. And it could be in any realm. I invite people to first start with stuff because that's more concrete. But it could also be relationships, career, journeys that my own evolution, my own learning. What do I want in that area? But I would start with something simple. Because a lot of the others, they've got layers of things that want to be unpacked in it. And then the next one, which people, when they start playing with it, they really understand is it stated positively? So most people will start with like, well, I don't want to be so fat.
Right. Well, I hate this car. Instead of I want a new car, is I
want to, I don't want this old clunker anymore. Yep. So people will start with what they don't want. And rather than stating it positively, what I think that brings up for people is their own inner upper limit. Like, oh, I couldn't possibly.
Yes.
I couldn't possibly have this wonderful new big thing. And so so people often start with what they don't want, but to state it positively, it really, what I also share with people is it's so important to find a verb or verbs rather than I have. So I enjoy, I savor, I relax into my new weight. So the verbs are really, rather than I have more stuff than I had last year. Yeah. So the have, do, am, the active verbs really light up and give energy to what it is that you're wanting to create in the new year.
That's beautiful. It reminds me of this when actually it was about a car, and I was talking about getting a new car, and someone said, "Why do you want a new car?" And I said, well, blah, blah, blah. I'm safer, whatever the obvious thing was. But like, why? Why do you really want a new car? And drilling down, it was this sense of freedom or this sense of elegance. So this, there was something that almost I could experience without the car. Like it was almost like if I felt the feeling that car would give me without the car, that'd be a win. And then I get the car. But there was something about distinguishing what it really was about that car that was uplifting for me to think about.
That's beautiful. And as you're talking about a couple of really important things, drilling down, like, okay, what's under that and what's under that? And that's incredibly valuable because you might have put, and I might have put, my value or what I think I'm going to be getting on the object. And what you're saying about, oh, I could create that for myself without the thing.
Yes.
And so I don't really need the thing. So it really comes to what do I really want?
Yeah.
And as separate from what I need. And so that's really a great one. Another one is it in the present tense? Okay. So a lot of people will be like, when I lose weight, then I can.
Yes.
So am I willing to enjoy this right now? So I walk through the door into my newly remodeled kitchen. Or I'm excited to create, new and nourishing food in my new kitchen. And I especially love the color yellow that I came up with. So though all of those, again, have a body reference, but it allows you, it's like trying on clothes.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will say, well, I don't have it yet. Well, when you go shopping for clothes, you try them on. And so stating it in the present tense is a way of trying it on.
Ah, beautiful.
And then you can get whether that really resonates with you, like, oh, that actually isn't a good fit, or oh, that's a wonderful fit. And I can see and experience myself in that new thing right now. And I found that tends to pull the future into the present.
Nice.
Because I'm already experiencing it. I'm always, yes, I can enjoy this. And I can always see it when people do it because they kind of have a little bit more of a flair. Yeah. And they move and they breathe more rather than, it's a secret or I'm hiding or I don't really think I deserve it. So your body will really give you that information. And the other one, well, there are two more that have been really valuable. One is, does it represent you at your most expanded self? And this is particularly to address that little word more. Like, I'd like to have more love. Well, what would that look like? So somebody could just come and, give you a kiss on the cheek, and that would be more. And that's it. And so and if it represents you at your most expanded, what I've noticed is that people actually may even feel a little bit dizzy or a little bit ungrounded because they're actually expanding beyond their current sense of themselves. And so I love that when that happens, when they get the wobbles, I go, oh, we're moving into that. Whoa, can I actually be this expanded? So it can bring up then, of course, feelings and things to look at in yourself, but it allows you to open that space for yourself. And then the really most important one is it sensory specific? So this would to let your body know that you're actually experiencing this new thing. So what would you be smelling? What would you be seeing? How would you be moving your body in this new space? So sensory specific is often what really lights people up. And playing with those questions, even if you don't get precise answers, I found really opens up the space for creating what you want in a way that's actually fun and productive.
I love that. And to close us, I feel like, first of all, I want to go do these questions right now. Like it triggered 12 things for me. I really like this idea that I like rehearsing almost. Like I try the sweater on to decide if I want that sweater. I can step into we have so much imagination. Sadly, we often use it as, to feed fear and to feed other things. But in this case, to just really imagine what would that feel like to walk in that new yellow kitchen and to let my body be in it and get used to it. I think that's a really beautiful, and we could do that for the year. Like we could do that.
You can do that all year. It's not just like you've got, 7 days at the beginning of the year and then it's the gate closes. And the thing I've found, and this is from experimenting for many years, is that when I have a thing that I can put into one out breath, because that's the other thing people do is they add adjectives and they add clauses. So it becomes a kind of a run-on sentence, that when I can say it in one out breath, to say it out loud to somebody who cares about me, because that really, that brings up all of the energy, and it may be like, oh, I didn't want to use that adjective, or this really lights me up, or, oh man, I don't even know if I can handle this. So it will bring up and allow somebody else to support you in creating what you want, so that you're not just doing it on your own.
I love that. We're a tribe. Thank you so much, Katie. Have a great year.
Yes, and you.